Hello, Paul Gerard from Price Accounting Services, and welcome to this introduction to our Developer Toolkit. We've had our Developer Toolkit for a number of years, and it's an excellent resource for anyone thinking about constructing, developing, or subdividing, doing anything to property that changes it. Now, every tax situation is going to be very, very different, and the Developer Toolkit doesn't try and teach you what the answer is, nor should it ever be used for that purpose. What it is, it's a technical information guide to assist to share some information prior to a consultation to develop a tax plan or advice surrounding your specific intention. And that's critical. There was a recent paper completed by the ATO, which was a draft paper, which is going to roll out as a series of tax rulings. And the complexity in the area is quite significant. Okay, it's little things that can sometimes not seem apparent to a taxpayer, but to a advisor who's really knowledgeable in the area of property taxes will be able to identify and share the information, because quite often there are strategies to employ to change, protect, or avoid a different tax outcome. What do I mean by that? Okay, I'm going to use a very simple situation and say, let's assume mum and dad own a block of land and they've got their home on it, and they're thinking about subdividing the block and selling off the other half of the lot. That may not be subject to GST. It may be still a CGT issue. However, if they were then going to tell me that following their completion of building the other property and selling it, they were then going to demolish their existing home and build another identical brand new property and sell that as well, then that markedly changes both tax situations. Both may be subject to GST and not capital gains tax, even in part, I say in part, for the main residence. So huge number of issues need to be considered. It's not as simple as just picking one focal point and saying, that's my situation, so therefore it applies. Okay? So be careful in your reading of the Developer Toolkit. The Developer Toolkit also comes with a worksheet, which we don't provide to people until the consultation. The purpose of the worksheet is to try and give them an accounting record that covers all the things they need to consider. And it's quite often missed by people, and I see them, for example, think that their own spreadsheet's pretty good. And we often find that it's actually not pretty good. It's actually pretty bad. We need to see dates of payments, who was paid, what it was for, apportionment between GST included in that invoice, and also if there's more than one property under development. For example, let's say there are 2 lots, there needs to be an apportionment. It might need to be based on area, or it might be a straightforward apportionment. So all these things need to be considered. Then there's reportable payments. If you don't know what a reportable payment is, perfect. Go read the Developer Toolkit. It's all included in there. We talk about GST. We talk about income tax versus capital gains tax, because a development is quite often not subject to capital gains tax. And people say, hang on, but no, I've sold a property, it's capital gains tax. Let me explain this. Capital gains tax is a modern tax introduced by Paul Keating in the 1980s. Okay? It was an addition to the existing tax regime. The existing tax regime always sought to tax certain property-related transactions, such as an intention to produce profit. So profit-making intention falls under what we call the ordinary income concepts. So that doesn't change with the introduction of capital gains tax. The question is, what is a CGT asset? So a CGT asset will be subject to capital gains tax. And there's a great reference in the Developer Toolkit to a situation where there's a tax ruling. Tax ruling covers and explains why the capital gains tax main residence exemption won't apply to certain property transactions. Simple ruling, probably a little bit too simple, but should act as a warning. So we hope you find the developer toolkit helpful, and then we welcome any inquiries for consultation in terms of developing your tax plan and strategies around how we may be able to assist and guide you. These strategies can include not selling the property, not developing the property, selling a property with an approval but not with any active changes or council changes, or nothing beyond a council approval. So limiting your scope of your activities can protect and preserve some tax positions. So we hope you enjoy it and read well, and then if you've got any inquiries, we're welcome to accept those. Of course, these sorts of inquiries won't be covered by our free consultation offer because it relates to a specific form of advice, and it's certainly more than something very incidental, and it's something we will charge for. But because you're armed with the knowledge, you'll find that the cost is somewhat reduced. So we hope you find that a benefit. We look forward to speaking to you if we need to, and I hope you enjoy it. Cheers.